Hi everyone, I'm Jay, and I'm here to talk to you about the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is the greatest and longest poem that has ever been written in the history of mankind. It takes its origins somewhere between the 3rd and 4th century BCE. Things that are going on, the context of things, and all the rest of the factual portion of the actual poem itself took place probably around the 8th or the 9th century BC. And the poem itself has a narrator by the name of Vyasa, and he is the one that is telling the story. And most texts attribute to his storytelling time around the 3rd or 4th century BCE. So this is a very old but very relevant poem. And just to give you some information about it, it is comprised of 100,000 shloka, which are couplets in Indian poetry, Sanskrit poetry that is. That means there are 200,000 individual verses. It has 1.8 million words, and to put that in context, that's 10 times both the Iliad and the Odyssey combined in length and number of words. So it is massive. I fell in love with this the first time it was given to me. As soon as I started reading it, I couldn't put it down. If anyone is interested in reading it, I strongly recommend it, but be forewarned that it's going to take some time and some patience. It is very, very detailed. And that is one of the reasons that I'm putting this webisode series together, because I would like to share with you, in my opinion, the greatest story of all time. And I would like you to at least understand and digest the important portions, at least the ones that I would like to highlight in the story, as far as it relates to me. And I see, for me, it's not just a story, it's actually one that combines the history of India, and it also, I would say, perfectly describes why Hinduism and its importance in modern day Indian society are inseparable. And so, regardless of what faith any person in India might be, Hinduism is integral in their daily lives, whether they realize it or not. And this poem really kind of brings it all together. And it's interesting also because it's such an old story that it's sort of remarkable that it is still relevant in today's current state of affairs. I just want to give you some background, and then we're going to dive right in and start talking all about it. To give you some more sort of foundational information about the poem itself, it is essentially a story of two families. These families are cousins, and they are a series of princes. There are the Pandavas, the 5 princes, and then their counterpart, the Kauravas, the 100 princes on that side. And they are battling throughout this story for their birthrights. The Pandavas, who are going to be the ones that I'm going to call the good guys, but you'll see that there are no real good guys and no real bad guys, even with respect to the gods and the demons and the other celestial entities, which we'll talk about in details because they're a lot, and there are some subtle nuances and there's some very obvious ones. But the Pandavas themselves are the ones who even the gods are championing. So you'll see that they are undoubtedly the ones that everybody wants to be their heroes. Just keep that in mind. And so the beginning of the story starts with what are referred to as the Kuru elders. So these are the forefathers of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. So we got to give you a little background on that, and we got to tell you where these folks come from and how the Pandavas came about and how the Kauravas came about. We will discuss sort of some interesting side stories, because there's always side stories, and there's always morality, there's always a lesson, and there's consequence. And that's what I love about this story, is because for every single action that someone takes, there is a reaction by something or some entity which is the consequence. And this is a really important thing to know because this is true today for us too. So even in this quasi-fictional story, because there's definitely some historical factual basis to much of it, including the actual location of things. So historians and geographers have been able to accurately pinpoint where everything is located in the epic, and according to the historical record, it matches. So that's pretty exciting. So it's not like somebody just made up some fantasy world and then told you a story, and then you're supposed to apply that to the modern day something or other. That's actually these are real places, and many of them still exist today. In this particular webisode, I'm not going to go into too many super detailed portions of the origins of the folks and all the rest of that stuff, but I wanted to just take a few minutes to give you some context and give you some background, and then in the next episode I'll get much more detailed, and hopefully you'll. So these elders come around in the beginning of the story. You find out sort of why certain things created certain people. There's one of the heroes in the story, one of the elders. His name is Bhishma. He is a very important figure in this entire epic, and his origin is celestial, because his mother happens to be Ganga. If that name doesn't ring a bell, that is the same name as the Ganges River. She is the goddess, that the river itself, she is that river, and she also is a celestial being. So it's important to remember that, because even though we don't regard him as being a god, he is in essence a demigod. Just like the Pandavas, who I'll explain in great detail who their origins come from, each and every one of them has a father who is a deity, a god. In addition to them being demigods, one of the most important characters in the entire epic is Lord Krishna. In the epic, he is a man, so he lives among men as a man, even though he is still a god, and he still has omniscience, and he has all the power in the world, and he is regarded by even the gods in the story as being the supreme deity of deities. So that's pretty interesting. And who do you think his favorites are? Well, I'll give it away. It's the Pandavas, and he loves them very, very much, and he gets very angry when they are cheated. So that's also kind of cool, because you can see that these deities themselves, they have distinct personalities. And I like that about this, because they're also very flawed. Just because they're deities doesn't mean they're perfect. Quite the opposite, actually. And I think that's one of the reasons that you can relate so well to these characters, and why you will champion certain ones and not others, because you're going to identify with them. I know I did. So I'm going to leave it there for today. But I want you guys to know that this is going to be a really interesting adventure, and we are going to discover very interesting things about each and every character and each and every experience and adventure that they face in the coming chapters. So stay tuned. Thanks.